You know, people have said, Rabbi, you're crazy. You're spending your time talking to athletes and coaches and managers and owners. And then I look at the three of you who are talking today, and my senior rabbi who said, there will be a time when this voice is needed in the sports and the faith world. You just look 2 weeks ago with DeMar Hamlin, no prayer, no prayer. All of a sudden, prayer. Coach, what's your thought of how does prayer work in the sports world? Because as Dave Sims, great commentator, once told me, nobody's praying when the loser's not always praying, saying, thank God. How does prayer work maybe in college basketball? When Steph Curry steps on that court, was he praying? Is it skill? What is he thanking God for?
For me, prayer is not a petition as much as it's a sign of gratitude. And coincidental with forgiveness, I believe, is gratitude. I think we don't have enough of that in our country, in our world today. And when you forgive somebody, you are relieving yourself of a burden. You are forgiving, as you wrote, you are forgiving yourself as well. But you are putting yourself in a position where it's a gift to yourself, but it's a gift to someone else. Gratitude is the same way. Think about when you say thank you to somebody, when you express gratitude, the feeling that that person has, but also the feeling that you have. And that to me is should be the foundation of your prayer. Gratitude for the opportunity to play a game, gratitude for the opportunity to be part of a team, gratitude for the opportunity to be healthy. And we again lose sight of that in the fast-paced world that we live in, and don't take that time. And I don't mean to be preaching here, but the two greatest gifts we have are time and love. And God gave them to us. And he expects us to use them and use them wisely. And the more we use those gifts wisely by giving them to others, the greater our time and love will be.
So, Alex, this is the clip where your mom proclaimed her forgiveness. And I never thought of that idea of forgiveness and gratitude. I'm going to quote you on my sermon this year, Coach.
Certainly can. I stole it from somebody.
As rabbis famously say, as one person once said. Alex, this is your mom having those words out of their mouth about this idea of forgiveness, but really what gratitude is all about.
Eva's biggest accomplishment came from within.
I, Eva Kor, hereby give amnesty to all Nazis who
In 1995, on the 50th anniversary of the Auschwitz liberation, Eva Kor returned to the camp to announce that she had forgiven the Nazis.
Enough is enough. I am healed inside.
Since then, even amid debate over her decision, a one-time prisoner and longtime outcast flowered.
So, as you said, Alex, earlier, very carefully, this was her decision, not a group of people's decision. So many of that generation never went back to Auschwitz, never went back. They didn't want us there. We don't go back. I had a different reaction when I went for the first time, that I had to go back again and again because I knew I was going to be a responsible person to share that next generation story. Take us back to that moment that we just watched, and this idea of forgiveness and gratitude and what it means to you now as a child of two survivors, propelling not just her legacy, but the legacy of humanity.
Well, yeah, that was January 27th, 1995. So the 50th anniversary. That was Dr. Hans Munch there with my mom. And those are clips from Ted Green's movie, Eva A-7063.
Right. Amazing documentary.
Yeah, great documentary. Well, I think, one of the things as a child of two Holocaust survivors who are no longer here on this world, one of my obligations and really responsibilities is to hopefully continue some of their work. And I really feel that's important. We're coming up on the anniversary here on January 27th. Yeah. Here in Indiana, the governor has declared Eva Education Day on January 27th for the fourth year in a row. So these are all things that make me proud, and a lot of times bring a tear to my eye, because I know that my mom and dad would be very happy that I'm trying to do my part along with other people here in Indiana. I think it's very important that we, in this day and age, as you've kind of alluded to, Rabbi, anti-Semitism is a bigger and bigger problem. And it's easy for people to say, well, that happened 70 some years ago, and where are the survivors? They're all passing away, unfortunately. And so I think it's very incumbent on me and people of my generation, and even younger, the third generation, can kind of take that torch and continue to shine the light on the world, because there are so many lessons that can be learned from the Holocaust. It can be on the basketball floor, it can be on the baseball field, the tennis court, but also just in everyday life. Coach talks about gratitude and forgiveness. These are all things that really people are not taught about. And my mom would say, when little third and fourth graders learn about reading, writing, and arithmetic, they should also learn about forgiveness. That this should be something that's taught to young children, maybe not to this magnitude of forgiving a Nazi, but to forgive Johnny who pulled Jimmy's hair or whatever. I think it's an important lesson that we can all learn in this day and age. And along these same lines, you asked a question earlier about what's the next step, and Stacy Gallen and some other people are involved in maybe having other college athletic teams go to Auschwitz, and I'll be more than happy to lead that tour.
Hey, Rabbi, can I just mention one other note?
Of course.
And I'm sure you are aware of this, but I've seen studies in recent years about it's frightening actually about how the percentage of millennials who do not know about the Holocaust, going way beyond college athletes. And one of the things I worked with Alex and Ted Green on that film, one of the best things to come beyond the film was we created an educational packet for schools throughout Indiana. In my hope, I'll take my book out because it would sound, I'm promoting that book, but that documentary film and the other films and literature on the Holocaust, it's so important right now, again, beyond college basketball and athletics, to educate this younger generation that the Holocaust even happened. And that I think is so important as well. And Alex's mom, though she's passed, I think continued to be such a beacon of light and an example, a role model for so many young people, in addition to teaching them what happened and the atrocities of the Holocaust.
Actually, next Thursday night, we have a program here for Holocaust Remembrance, International Holocaust Remembrance Day, and it's a new organization called If You Heard What I Heard. And it is the grandchildren of Holocaust telling their stories of their grandparents, where obviously Alex is telling the story of Eva and what did it mean to grow up with the grandparent. I have friends that have four grandparents who are survivors. And what did that mean to them now as honestly free Americans who didn't experience that, but who understood that anti-Semitism is alive and well. And it's interesting to me that, right, Coach McKillop, you're sitting in North Carolina, and Graham and Alex, you're in Indiana, not major Jewish communities, right? LA, where I am, in New York, and Boston, and Miami, you would think maybe that's where these conversations are happening. Maybe Alex, share a little about candles and what it means to have a Holocaust memorial in Terre Haute, Indiana, and who's walked through those halls and who maybe other athletes that you want to walk through those halls going forward.
So yeah, in 1984, my mom created Candles Holocaust Museum. It stands for Children of Auschwitz Nazi Deadly Laboratory Experimental Survivors. Wow. And the museum was created on very humble beginnings. Literally, the initial pictures were with Scotch tape on the walls, very neatly. And 1993 or so, we had a firebombing of the museum. It was then rebuilt. But yeah, since the rebuilding, we've had a lot of important visitors there. As I mentioned, Jim Cruz, close friend, Bob's friend as well, has taken several teams there. The Indiana State University team, led by Josh Schertz, was there this past summer. And so it is a unique Holocaust museum dedicated to telling the story of the Mengele twins, but also dedicated to talking about forgiveness. I mean, there would be many people when my mom was alive that would come to the museum. Yes, they wanted to learn about World War II and the Holocaust, but they were there to learn how to forgive. And they would sit with my mom in a room and say, look, my grandfather did something terrible and I can't forgive him. How do I do this? And my mom would tell people how she learned how to forgive, and it wasn't something that just happened overnight. And so I really have a great source of pride for Troy Fears as the executive director, and he's done a tremendous job. And we have a lot of big plans in the future. I should also mention, Rabbi, there was an exhibit in Indianapolis, Indiana, at the Indiana Historical Society for another year. That focuses on my mom, and so both of those have the USC Shoah Foundation hologram. And so at times, if I want to talk to my mom, I'll do it on my computer and ask her questions. But yeah, for me, moving forward, I never would have dreamed that all this would have been possible. And, when she passed away, it was so suddenly that I never really had an opportunity to ask her what my role should be moving forward.
Wow. Right.
Rabbi, one other aspect of Eva's remembrance, and this ties into Davidson as well. There are 3 giant murals in downtown Indianapolis that are painted on buildings that go up stories. One is of Reggie Miller, the great Pacers player. I don't know if you're a Knicks fan. He was sort of the arch enemy.
I'm in LA. I've heard that guy in the Bruin history.
There's Kurt Vonnegut, the Indiana author native who ironically wrote a lot about being a soldier during World War II. And then there's Eva Kor.
Wow.
And it's this giant, beautiful mural that was painted on a building downtown. Alex could tell you how high it actually goes. And one of the great things is that the Davidson team played Purdue this past December, gave Purdue all they wanted, who was number 1 at the time. Right. And Coach Matt McKillop took his team and got a photo in front of that mural. And so, you think about our book that we did, you think about the museum, you think about the video, but ironically, as Coach McKillop said, she was only 4'6", but there's just this massive mural downtown that remains a great legacy. And our hope is that people who aren't familiar will pass by that and say, well, who is that lady, and learn about her.
And Coach, you went on this trip, but I keep saying it didn't end there. For Kristallnacht, when we commemorate the moment of broken glass, you traveled to New Jersey and you went to a synagogue. You could have done anything. Why did you do that? And what did that moment mean, not just to you, but the reaction to the Jewish community that you walked into their sacred space and told your story?
How could you be given a gift and not use it? And we were given a gift with the opportunity to go to Auschwitz. And every time the opportunity to use the gift of sending that message of forgiveness and sending that message that this should never happen and will never happen again, I think you must seize that moment. I believe our players actually read the names of people killed in the Holocaust at some point in that next year when we returned in the springtime. There's a commemoration of that. I'm not sure what the title of
Yom HaShoah, right?
Correct. And every one of our players, I believe, read 100 names that day.
Wow.
And so the continuity is something we need. It can't be just a moment in time that you spend a couple of hours at Auschwitz. It's got to be something you live your life. And clearly, preach without using words. And that's what we try to do.
Actually, as Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, who walked with Dr. Martin Luther King, said that we should pray with our feet, which is another word of saying, obviously, preaching without our words.